All right. So basically, so this is our day two Monday meetup. Sorry, I was on the wrong slides. Um, the centerpiece is the layer two calibration pass we'll do together about halfway through. But before we get there, I need to talk about the config refactor that landed over the weekend and walk through which YAMLs each pair owns this week. After that, we'll do a quick pair by pair check in on where you are. Um, Demos Thursday, 3 working days out, so let's get moving on this. Yeah, we have the weekly surveys and the interview announcement. Hold on one second. Why I edited these slides? Why are they not? Hold on one second. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties right now. Just give me just 1 second. My file edits didn't stick on my slides, so I'm just trying to. Those take me like 1 minute to get them done here. Just a couple more minutes. Sorry about this. Really, that's what I get for multitasking. All right. So, um, yeah, just so you know, this we'll have a parking lot in this with another slide because doing some last minute work with Fatima and Nestor and Brian and Emilio, and some things changed after I made these slides. But I just created a 5 slide addendum to add to the end of this and share in the chat rather than try to go through and edit the slides. But basically, 203, 278, and 291 are other PRs that have landed this morning. And we'll look at those in the parking lot deck at the end. But these are the 4 PRs that landed over the weekend. We have the Q&A Val Harness baseline. That was I merged their branch in. I mean, we talked on Friday. It was still a separate branch, so now the evaluation harness is merged in, and Brian and Emilio are doing fixes off of development to refine the eval harness. Uh, I opened up a branch to refresh the aggregates so that way we'd actually get answerable questions because I did a run over the weekend like I said I would regarding ingestion and processing loop. So more jobs got added, and then we're able to answer those questions once the aggregates are refreshed. The big change is the config refactor, and we'll get into that in a minute. And also, we're approaching the limit for storage on GitHub regarding our JSON fixtures. So I just switched it to Git LFS. It's just an open source tool that's integrated into Git. You guys will need to install Git LFS, but the Git attributes file and everything set up. What it does basically is stores the files on the cloud in Git, and then has a pointer to those files. So essentially, it's the same. Nothing changes as far as executing scripts go and exporting and importing data. It's just that the files are stored in file storage instead of a raw blob on Git. Oops. So yeah, just create your branches off of development today, and like I said, the Parse scorer redesign, the priority issues have been merged. The site is still, but they're still working on some additional things as well. And these draft and linting, you could just ignore this. We got that fixed before the meeting started. So this is the short version of the quick refactor. There's 127 line EMV got split into 11 YAML files under config, accessed through a new loader. The big rule that is here is that there's no Python side defaults. YAML is the source of truth, and the missing key raises a config error instead of silently falling back to whatever was hard coded somewhere. And this is important because I want to make sure that in doing the refactor, everything's caught. It's not just silently using like a hard-coded message. And after everyone pulls this, and like the next week, I'll actually deprecate fallbacks completely from the EMV overrides. But we want to use the YAML as our source of truth and not have any alternative. We want it to fail. And notice when an EMV file, like if it's overwritten in .env, you'll get a warning when you run the script to check. It'll just flag a warning that it's actually pulling from EMV. So whenever we see those warnings, they need to be opened as issues and just cleaned up over the next week. Really easy fixes. It's just wide scope, so it's easy to miss them. We fixed the pipeline. So we had where is it at here? It's not listed on the slide. So there's just getting my bearings here. There's a bonus pipeline fix that came along for the ride in this. Both the serial and async enrichment pass, now called classified job for role classification and seniority. So if you've had to work around this for your work and use the backfill scripts like we did use them, I think I was mostly doing it, but that's in there and verified working now that I run the processing loop. And then there's a fresh DV database export. So if you guys run the database script in the PG script folder, you'll get all the aggregate tables filled and everything. So that way when you're doing your scoring and asking the questions, you'll get accurate answers based on the data we currently have. So going forward, we won't need to do any historical backfill, and the backfill scripts are basically just archived as historical at this point because the processing pipeline is fixed. I won't move the scripts just yet in case something gets remerged back in. It'll be nice to have those scripts just to run backfill if something gets broken in the future, but the state's good right now as far as running the processing loop. So here we'll do we'll edit your YAMLs on your week 10 branch. Just edit them like prompts. The change becomes part of your iteration log entry. Um, keep your iteration log internally consistent. So Brian had created basically in the evals folder an internal log that tracks things. He's actually, I don't know if you got it remapped yet, Brian, to trim it down because a lot of the data was redundant with LangFuse, but I don't know if you got that done yet.
I haven't, but it will be done today. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you'll have that there to track your changes, and just look at that, and then further, I'd like to create a script to where you could just run your scores and run a script and just copy and paste it into the log because it is a manual thing, but it's to track everything that's already tracked in LangFuse has been trimmed out, so it's a lot lighter than what it sits. If you look at it now, it's pretty heavy. But if you look at it, you'll see it, and you want to track your iterations there so you can see the changes over time as you tweak things. So yeah, the whole point of this slide basically is just one change at a time. And having this YAML set up and the changes there, we could actually track changes. Really important for fine tuning to get that refactor done. That's why I went ahead and did it this weekend. So that way you could track it and it's not in ENV where it's kind of a mystery and we don't really know what's there. So when you do your changes, you could commit the change, run the test, make the change, run the test, commit the changes, and then your iteration logs at the same time, so they're part of the same commit. And that way it's easy just to go back in history too and see them, and you can see the changes over time and get history and they're captured. And then use LangFuse as well. So there's 3 YAMLs are different and they'll need extra care. The eval YAML, the LLM YAML, and the shared sections of the analytics YAML file are all cohort affecting. What that means, if you change them on development, you shift everyone else's measurement baseline. So those are the hard rule. You have to PR with the diff, have the iteration log row showing improvement attached as evidence, and a Discord ping in the eval harness chat. I created the eval harness chat to specifically talk about this because coordinating is important, so we don't want to step on each other's toes. Like if someone gets an improvement somewhere, we want to talk about it and acknowledge that, and then not just kind of get buried in me doing merges and other tweaks being overridden if they share in those 3 files. And here, as we move through the slides, we'll see for your intents what YAML files you'll actually have to touch. Yeah, because if you merge during another pair's eval run, their version 2 versus version 3 comparison will just silently span your change, and they won't be able to tell whether their prompt change helped or your YAML tweak did. So it's really important just to isolate those changes. And it's just important to know that the rules aren't to slow us down. It does add more process, but it's just there so when scores go up, the person who shipped the change can actually claim the win and know, like, yeah, this actually brought legitimate improvement. So Anhil and Fabian, I know Fabian just is out for a couple days. Anhil, did he talk to you at all?
No, he hadn't mentioned anything.
Yeah, he'll probably be out till Wednesday. But he had a family thing going on that he had to miss. Yeah, he just I think his I don't know if I'm fine sure, but I think he'll be fine with it. But his wife had their baby. They had their baby, so over the weekend, so he's like at the hospital Monday and Tuesday. So he'll probably be back Wednesday. But just an FYI. And if that stalls your guys' work a little bit, I'm sure he'll get caught up once he gets back. But just to let you know, so you're not thinking he's gone or just MIA. So
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. I think he messaged me kind of in a hurry, like it was like impromptu, so he probably just messaged me and it was out. So yeah, I just wanted to iterate. Okay, so your YAML scope, your guys' YAML scope is the cleanest of the four because clustering is squarely in your domain. The one YAML you write to is clustering.yaml, uh, where your recluster target lives. Min cluster size and the parameters you'll bump to go from 6 clusters to 24 or 40. Everything else, like eval score values, synthesis prompts, the LLM tier you read, you don't write. Um, the one crosspair piece worth keeping in front of you is your reclustering output is what Juan and Enrique's curriculum generation queries depend on. So sync with Juan and Enrique sometime today our cluster naming and structure before you publish anything. And you'll see that we'll look more at that clustering YAML here in a second. I'll hop over to the repo and we'll look at these different config files. So, did you get the auditing stuff done? I know we had a fix on that for using embeddings. Anhil, was that done?
I am not sure actually.
Okay, I
I don't
haven't.
think so.
Yeah, I was trying to get the config done and get these prep for today. I actually got to do a cleanup pass over the project board and the issues and see what's open still. But basically, you're using the output of the audit tables to do this work because you want to use that audit to, as data to inform what you're going to do. So if that isn't done yet, we got to make sure that's done first so you actually get legitimate audits. I know it was like really sparse and not really satisfying. I think we opened an issue on it on Friday. So yeah, we'll have to go back and look at the issues, which I have them in the parking lot slides too, but it's kind of in the work still. That's why I just didn't make it an official part of the slides because I was still in the process before we started today.
Okay, yeah, I can check on them.
And I'm trying to. Okay, Fatima's not here, but Nestor is. Okay, cool. Fatima and Nestor, your scope splits in a kind of interesting way. You write to analytics YAML when iterating on trend and role evolution synthesis prompts, but those changes stay branch scoped. So just basically you'll do this work in your branch, right? But you also touch labor pulse YAML, but only by reading it during red team probes. So you guys are doing the red team probes, meaning you're going to try to break things, right? You're testing the endpoint's behavior, not changing its config. That's Juan and Enrique's territory. They wrote the endpoint. So the crosspair coordination point that's worth bringing up is the critical finding path. So if you guys are trying to break things and you break something, open it as an issue, then pair Juan and Enrique can own the fix. That way, it's just work staying in the same scope for each group. And you could use, the agent to open an issue when you're probing and finding things, and then you just open the issue, and then in the issue tell it to assign Juan and Enrique, and then just tag them in Discord with a link to the issue. Yeah, and all this work, please be active in the communication back and forth. So like you would ping them, but ping them in the eval harness chat. It's right under, let's see where it's at. Yeah, it's right under text channels at the very bottom. So yeah, make sure everyone, just like for any discussion about eval harness, cross team, keep it there. I know Brian and Emilio, you're pretty active at talking in Discord. Your back and forth can still happen inside your chat because you're working directly on the eval harness, so that kind of conversation is fine. But any kind of adjustments for scoring or anything needed, please include that in eval harness. I hope that's clear. But yeah, you can see If I come over here, you can see the eval harness. Yeah, and so this is where you'd want to leave those that I'm referencing.
Sounds good. If we find an issue, we'll open it and tag them there.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so Brian and Emilio, your scope is bigger than the other three because you're working on the fixes for the eval plus doing because you own the score. Everyone else reads. Three of your rights are hard rule. Eval YAML for the structural scorer redesign. The shared sections of analytics on .yaml for geographic routing, and LLM YAML for the judge model that PR264 introduces. So the fourth, the LLM cost YAML, is informal because no other pair iterates against cost metrics. So yeah, so given how much you write, to the compensating discipline is the Discord announcement. And so every P0 lands with 30 plus minutes notice in eval harness. So we already know all the P0s are there, so this is Stella as well. I was writing this morning when P0s were still in draft. So every P0 lands with 30 plus minutes notice in eval harness, so other pairs can finish in flight iterations. So you don't have to include that. We're talking about it here. Everyone, the P0, which were the big blockers for doing scoring, have been fixed. They're implemented, and you can see those. They're open in the Langfuse scoring tutorial, and they're referenced, but they are now fixed. And you'll see the version 2 of the scoring. The version 2 document is what you'll be referencing.
Should we announce anything from P1 and P2 or?
Yeah, you can just roll out, just announce like in eval harness that P1 and P2 came out because the run books reference those things as issues for some of the scoring, because some of the scoring can be done. It's mostly the automated scoring that needs fixed. The P0, I believe, fixed the manual scoring that they have to do. So basically just announce when they fix so people are aware so they could rerun the experiments and get the new automated scores.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a suggested parallel split here. Just continue your week 10 thread coordination. I know that you Emilio shipped the redesign commits. Brian said he'd take the last segment tonight, which was on Friday. So this slide just makes that visible to the cohort so they can see how the work flows. What I was recommending is that you, Brian, finish Lint plus the 267 and 268 merges, which actually is Estelle. It's already done. We did it this morning. But then you guys just continue. You guys communicate well. But on the 271, I don't know if Emilio's going to pick that up or Brian, you're continuing to work on that. Either way is fine. There was a lot there to do, so I just kind of recommend how to split it so it was even. But these are the other issues that were open. Yeah, so if you already aligned differently in your thread, the goal is parallelization. As long as the stuff's getting done at the same time, it's cool. So Juan and Enrique, you have 3 YAMLs in your right column. So basically, you'll need, if you guys are looking at these charts, you can see that like these are the ones you need to read from, and these ones are you need to write from. So there is some coordination where if they do significant changes, like I guess you could look at this slide as a reference, but if you could see someone else's branch has changes to what you're reading from, you could cherry pick their changes into your branch to continue using those. If they're offering improvement, right? So like, for example, Anhill and Fabian do some refinements to the clustering to where it gets better. And then you get some significant gains here. It'd be good to ping that Anhill in eval harness, like with the commit hash. So then Juan and Enrique could just cherry pick that into their branch and continue working on that. Same with the eval as we get eval more fleshed out, just pinging and then them pulling that into their branch. So that way their writes are accurate as possible, and the improvements that are coming from clustering and evaluation are carried over into their branch. They're not just trying to improve based on the stale YAML files. Does that make sense? So there's a little more coordination needed for this because it's cross team and we're covering different sections. It's really a good exercise in team practices. But yeah, it will be a little more complex. And I try to make it as simple as possible, but it's just there's rather than just assigning it to like 2 devs and having them coordinate on it, there's not really much more you could do. Yeah, so this slide's still as well. We're going to talk about this in the parking lot updates, but PR 278 merged this morning, and the version 2 baseline ran clean. So the composite score actually changed from it went down, but it's an intentional sensitivity gain, and all 5 P0s closed. So the in-flight framing on this slide is still, and we'll look at parking lot deck slides 2 and 3 next. Yeah, so the slide was drafted assuming pair C score redesign was still in flight, but it merged this morning. So for the rest of you, here's what landed and what it means for your iteration today. The 5 P0 commits closed the 5 corresponding issues. The composite dropped, but that's the scorer doing its job. It's not your prompts regressing. So what you should do today is trust the evidence citation and intent accuracy deltas as before. And now also start reading the new subcomposite breakdown, the prompt quality, the classification, pipeline health, and safety. The geometric overall score is gated when answerability falls below 0.2, which it currently is for version 2. But that's traced. Yeah.
B 2.1 is already up as well. So
yeah, V1's already done too. Yeah. So the geometric overall score is gated when an answerability falls below 0.2, which it currently is for version 2, right? But that's traced to a fixture side issue, which was just fixed in PR 291, right? So there's a version 2.1 rerun on post merge dev, right? That's what is that what you're referencing?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
that was fixed.
Yeah, I was like, I had it here. All right, just making sure I was on point. So Brian will publish the version 2.1 and eval runs findings version 2.1, which you may have already done, right? Is it in the findings? The eval runs findings version 2.1 MD?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the answerability recovered from 0.06 to 0.34, surpassing B1's, which is good. And it was the data seed regression that caused.
Yeah, just like we thought last time, right? We only had, before I read ingestion this week, it had the new processing for the new week's job. There was no temporal comparison. So all our data about all our tables, like we're capturing velocity or any kind of change or demand, were all empty. So no. And we have our guard set up so those questions can't be answered, right? If there's no data. So without any gaps to any weeks to compare against another week, basically everything was working fine. It's just we didn't have the data there, right? So it wasn't filling in the temporal gaps And so then it wasn't answering the question, so it was scoring low on answerability. But now with that data there, it bumped up some. It improved because before it couldn't answer any questions. Okay, so calibration. This is the centerpiece, really, of today's session. So I want to. Oh yeah, and I haven't got to this. I was going to have 10 golden standard items reference set, but doing the merges and some fixes to get the config merged into some branches that didn't get merged on Friday or over the weekend. I had to do it this morning, so I didn't have time to get to creating these golden set questions. So I'll probably pick this up tomorrow. But basically, if you walk through I'm just going to walk through the same tutorial you are and answer my questions, so it's line by line, so you can start before I do this. But I actually want to take the time tomorrow to do this, and then you guys score the same one, so we all have a feel of what a score should look like. So we're just to make sure we're all in alignment, like on the same page regarding scores, so they're not significantly different. Doing that in the beginning will actually save us time towards the end of the week and beginning of next week when we actually compare scores. Because if there's for every score that has for every question that we do that has like a big drift when we swap and score again this week, we'll have like a big issue if there's a big diff, because we'll have to like talk about each one and figure it out. Where if we do this kind of preemptively and I score 10, you all score the same 10, we talk about the differences and then tackle each one's intent, it will make it so that drift, that gap in scoring will probably be less likely, because we'll all have a common understanding of how to score things. So right here, what we're calibrating. So if we disagree by 0.3, remember there's a 0 to 1 score. So if there's a disagreement by 0.3 or more, we'll talk about it. So like basically I'll score everything, and then you guys will score everything, and then we'll look at it and we'll talk about it, because we need to refine our scoring mechanism so we could actually it's not as subjective. Yeah, that's it pretty much. So yeah, I was trying to get this done this morning, but I just ran out of time, so I apologize for that. But we'll get to it tomorrow, and I'll score 10 questions. So this is where you guys are at right now. Does everyone feel comfortable with like moving on to scoring? Is there any blockers that keep you guys from hopping into tutorial and scoring on the cloud database, on the cloud Langfuse? I mean, sorry.
I think I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah, if you're not, please bring it up now, but also ping me, because we need to. The sooner we start scoring, the better. That way we can iterate and really get good quality stuff. Like some of the numbers are unsurprisingly low. This is we're on version 2 baseline, but basically we're just not doing any improvements yet. We're just getting the eval harnessed. Get rid of the noise in the measurements, so that way we can actually do improvements. So the scores are low. They're not really acceptable to bring in for like a demo to Borderplex yet, but as far as development goes, that's what we're doing. We're making it better. So we want to get those up, and we'll either tomorrow or the next day in the slides I'll have included the SLAs of what we have for what we consider acceptable scores, and it's in the architecture MD file and in the Cloud MD file. Those requirements are actually laid out of what Ritu is wanting the quality to be like. So we'll have those, and we can see, are we getting close to that mark? Is it possible with additional data or some fine tuning? And we'll take it from there.
And then I wanted to tell you, Gary, I don't know if should we delete the V1 run?
Yeah, the original one, because you reran the V1, right, with now that it has the same scores.
Yes.
Yeah, so delete the original V1, yeah, because it's not apples to apples anymore because the metrics have changed. Yeah.
I mean, we already have the comparison. B 2.1 is already on line view, so we can use that one.
Yeah, just delete the original V1 baseline though. Yeah, delete the original because that was ran against the old before P0s landed. So it's just noisy. Does that make sense? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this slide is stale. It's fully resolved. We'll talk about in the parking lot slides. Both these PRs merged this morning along with the fixture refresh, plus it did into pair B findings. So now let me open up the other deck real quick, actually. It's just 5 more slides that we'll cover real quick. Updates that happened this morning. Is OSB picking these up? Yep, cool. So rather than try to go and edit the slides, because this was literally 20 minutes before, I just added some additional, slapped together some quick slides real quick. They're not perfect, but basically these are the PRs that landed on development today. So Brian and Emilio's audit, plus findings docs caught the employer profile ID structural gap. So that was updated in their findings and fixed. Because remember, we're looking for gaps and errors, and we're putting them in our findings docs, and then we're pinging the people that need to create issues, and then pinging the people that are responsible for that area, or if they're in our own code we touched last week for building out the measurement, we fix it, and then we continue doing the measurement. So when these fixes are applied, we want to get them, rather than wait till the end of the week to get them into development, we want to get them in as soon as possible, really. So if there's a fix that data isn't being written correctly, so it's given poor quality and it's caught, I think majority of things are caught. There was still an issue where there was 1,000 null job postings, but my fix over the weekend at least reduced that to 496. But there's an issue open. Fatima and Nestor found that, and they have an issue open to go look into it further. But the 6 aggregate tables repopulated after the Q80, which was the config refactor. So skill demand, these are all the temporal changes that didn't have any data. So skill demand went from 0 to 693 records. Skill velocity to 2.5K. Sectors went from 0 to 2, and geo went from 0 to 3. And we're focusing in just on the Borderplex region too, so the Cruces and the surrounding areas. So you could think about geographic settings, that's right, because we're focused on a specific area. And even sectors, business sectors might be very narrow for IT work if you're looking at a specific area, so I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but it's worth looking at what those are, especially they're very human readable. You could just query these tables and see what's coming back. That's only a couple responses. And then the version 2 what Brian was talking about is up. I didn't have time to create speaker notes to break down what each of these things actually means sometimes. So this issue closed today. The sector summary, that was the this was a issue that was opened because sector summary weekly was empty, but at 291 the fixture refresh filled those tables, so this issue was closed. And then this was closed because the iteration log I shared with Brian over the weekend, it had a lot of redundant information, so he came back with a a plan to fix it. So that issue was closed, and he's fixing it with there's different options listed in the issue. So he went with option B, with his change of adding the findings per milestone pattern. So these are new issues that came up in the key wins. So yeah, so the 280 fix I did over the weekend, there was 1.3k normalized jobs that were orphans, but the 280, the refactor I did when I was cleaning things up, and reran things, there was only 469 normalized job orphans. I think I know what this is. There's an issue where the primary keys, they're UUID version 4, unique identifiers, and in some places they're trying to be inserted as strings, and I thought that was fixed, and I think that was just part of the problem, because when I applied that fix, it went from 1.3k down to 469, but there's still some left over. But there was also an issue early on when we did this where we had a test that was deleting data from the table, like dropping data. A test was doing it. So I think these might be leftovers from that. And I just got to do some more investigation to see why that's happening. But I don't think it's the code itself. I think it's past things like kind of raising themselves up. So I just got to look into that more. Then yeah, the sector summary weekly, that issue that was closed, and then in the disruption intent at 20% accuracy, I think that's going to be fixed, Anhill, with when you do that issue that was opened on Friday with the embeddings. So it's not, because right now it's just using like a mapping to synonyms, I believe, if I recall correctly, and so that's real brittle. Like it'll change over time, and you got to constantly update the map. We have the embeddings already, and so the cost to take one and look it up is like 2/10,000ths of a penny, super cheap with the embedding model. So it's better just to create the embedding and then compare against the embeddings that already live there to find matches, and that will actually not require any maintenance. And as our corpus of data gets larger, we'll actually get better over time because there'll be more things to match to. So yeah, that's definitely the fix, and I think that should give you big improvements on this. And I gotta clean up. This is kind of a work in progress for cleaning up issues and making sure things are not duplicated and connected together. And here, like when I was just talking about, I'll make sure those two issues are like at least reference to one another, and like a priority order set up for getting that embedding done first before that, and you'll probably see a direct result of improvement there. But there's several issues here. Like all these some of these closed even after I did this. So like the P0s are done. This Anhill, this disruption intent at 20% accuracy, 292. That's open. But I think it connects back to the other issue I was just mentioning. And this is these are priority one. These are what they're working on now. These are the eval updates, just so scores are clear, and you got the extraction evaluation rigor. Because if you remember, Anhill and Fabian, you guys worked on the extraction eval earlier on the job postings, and we had like the P and R and F1 score, and we want that same kind of rigor included in the eval. So that's part of the issues they're doing, is making sure we're keeping that same rigor. And then there's these two. These are actually quick, and they're not huge blockers, but I gotta do these. Just setting up the server. I'm the owner of the LangFuse server, so I gotta actually. These are admin issue things, but just basically setting up the LLM as a judge, and then the LangFuse cost attribution registering our Azure deployment, so it could actually get updated with the cost, so it could be accurate. And this is kind of more specific of this 265. So 262 is closely related to 265. And this is our unassigned issues. Basically, and this is, I'll do this and I'll share the issue list in chat again, but I won't read through all these because it's all these numbers aren't going to stick in our head anyway, so it's better to have a list and then the action items associated with them, and the numbers are just reference. So, but basically these numbers here, these issues here, some of them are resolved already, some of them are still and have been just fixed by other fixes that refactored. And then these other active gaps, I'll make sure that they're assigned to the people that's attached to their intent in the code they worked on last week. So basically, you're doing the fixes for your code to improve quality, and you're working on the YAML configs to tweak it to get better scoring, and you're running experiments in LangFuse for your 20 questions per group. One in Arike, you have 30, but basically it's majority is 10 questions each. You score your 10 questions, look at the experiment, go make changes, one change at a time, make the change in your branch, and you'll split your 10 questions, your questions evenly. So basically the changes you're making in your branch are fine. You rank your changes, run the score, then you could do the comparison and LangFuse to see if there's improvement or not. And you could iterate on that really fast. You could actually go through this in, probably a couple hours. It's not just handing it off to the agent load, because you do got to go into the LangFuse and do the scoring manually. But you'll be able to use that comparison and look at things really quick side by side for your 10 questions. And I believe if you want to look into it, right now the tutorial walkthrough just shows you clicking the annotate button. Like it walks through just clicking the annotate button, but you could actually set up a queue, which is I think touched on, but there's not a direct walkthrough for it. But you could set up a queue score, and actually put your 10 questions in the queue, and then iterate off of that. All right, so that's it for the parking lot slides. Is there any questions? I feel like I ramble a lot. I don't know how much you guys have there. Do you guys need... Sorry about the confusion, too, on the slides earlier. That was horrible. But is there any questions regarding the work and getting into scoring?
No.